Hi, this is Kim Hallin, and I want to welcome you to a new series I'm calling Awakening the Soul of Relicario. This series will document the unique and in many ways simple approach I've been taking to support this lovely horse in remembering who he really is and how to feel more comfortable and confident in his own skin. To give you just a little background, Relicario, who I call Rayleigh for short, came to me last year as a 9-year-old. He's a gelding, and he's a Colombian Pasofino. The reason Rayleigh came to live with me is because he had a whole host of extreme behavioral issues that were making it pretty much impossible for him to find a permanent home anywhere else. Some of the many labels that had been put on him included that he was unsafe to ride, unpredictable, volatile, explosive, and mentally unsound. Some people even went as far as to say he was crazy. But what's really interesting is that many of the same people who used these negative labels to describe him also referred to him as being sweet-natured, sociable at times, and sensitive. So how does one horse come to be labeled with such contradictory descriptions? Well, it's because his behavioral issues are simply coping mechanisms that he developed in order to maneuver his way through a domestic world that he couldn't really make sense of, and that ultimately he didn't feel safe in. After Rayleigh came to live with me, I also realized that he has some pretty significant stifle issues. His stifle joints on both sides are prone to sticking or locking, and generally, from my observations, are unstable much of the time. I truly believe that misunderstandings about his physical soundness, especially as it relates to potential pain and discomfort, or at least feelings of instability in his stifle joints, have exacerbated his emotional issues. When Rayleigh came to me, I was advised that he loved doing round pen work at Liberty, and also that it was very important both for his emotional and physical health, including as a way to help strengthen his stifle muscles, that he got regular exercise. So what I'm going to show you today is a video recording of what happened the very first time I decided to explore how Rayleigh responded to kind of traditional type round pen work. So here I'm getting started, and the first thing I want you to notice is that Rayleigh is on me like glue, right? And there I just tried to ask him to respect my space a little bit, and you saw that he took off. He looked for the first opportunity to be told to go out in a circle, and then you can see he immediately went to running around, and he's really quite emotional and kind of theatrical about this. So I quickly decide that that isn't the kind of behavior I really want to encourage, and I checked to see if he could read my body language to come in, which automatically he came right in, and you can see he's like on me like glue again. So it was very obvious to me that Rayleigh was well versed in what's typically known as join up, and that had probably been reinforced for him a lot, and he just wanted to stick with me and got emotional when he got sent out. And here I'm just trying to come closer to the video camera so you can see what he's doing. And so here again, he's right on top of me, and I'm just asking him to please step back out of my space a little. So the other thing that was really obvious right away is that Rayleigh doesn't really have any concept of what is his space and what's my space, and probably has never been taught how to, respect, not just respect other human space, but also probably has never felt what it feels like to have his space respected by a human. So he's showing a lot of signs of just high anxiety, adrenaline here. He's kind of looking around like he'd like to leave, but he doesn't. And, this is something I found to be true with a lot of horses that have emotional anxiety in the domestic world. And they have learned through, various types of reinforcement. Could be negative reinforcement, could be even punishment, but also can be positive reinforcement, that they're not really allowed to leave, or that they shouldn't leave, or that they should choose to stay. And so at this point, I don't think that Rayleigh even understands that he has the option to go. I'm not in any way asking him to stay there. I'm not expecting him to stay there. In fact, I wish that he would walk away. And yet he's just staying right there. And you can see from his movements and expression that he's just really not sure what to make of all of this. There's that leg movement showed at least that he was kind of at least shifted a body position. He's starting to sniff things and lower his head a little bit. These are good signs that maybe he's kind of starting to engage his thinking mind just a little bit. I'm backing up just to give him a little more space. I want to make it clear that if he wants to leave, he can, and that I don't have any expectation of him. And he just doesn't really seem to understand what this means. Again, he's looking around as if he probably, there's a part of him that wants to leave, but either he doesn't know that he can, or he's afraid of the consequences. I'm really not sure. It's just a learned behavior, I think. Now, at this point, some people may wonder, why don't I either encourage him to walk away or step out of the area myself so that he's free to go? And here's the reason. I really don't like to micromanage my horses, and I really want Rayleigh to learn how to regulate his own emotions. So that pawing there is, again, a sign of anxiety. Pawing tends to be a sign of anxiety. So I moved a little bit further away just to give him a little more space. But I want him to be able to regulate his own emotions. Now, you see there, I moved away and he moved a step closer. Again, that's showing me that he thinks what he's supposed to do is stay with me. You see him shaking his head and processing here. And then he starts to come into my space again. So this conversation is entirely about, I don't want to micromanage him, but there is one rule, and that's that, he's not allowed to come into my space. Just like I don't want to come into his space without permission. And that's going to be a new set of rules in our relationship, is that I won't come into his space without permission, and he's not to come into mine without permission. That's just general courtesy rule. It's not power or control. It goes both ways. It's just a rule of respect. So here he's kind of like, not sure what to do with this. You see him lowering his head, more head tossing. He's starting to engage emotionally, but again, he's going back to what he knows, which is, let me come into your space. I think in the past he's been rewarded for that, but also it could be just insecurity in that he's not comfortable being in his own space. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He's not confident about what he's supposed to be doing. So, and as you watch future videos with him, you'll see that he has a habit of nibbling a lot when he's feeling anxious. And all of this here is he's just trying to find out how, there, a little bit of almost nip. He's kind of like, what's going on? And I'm just, reinforcing what my personal space boundary is and trying to encourage him to be in his own space and take control of his own self. And here he finally starts to get what I'm saying. Let's get all this yawning. And there's a lot of debate about what that kind of yawning means, but to me it really indicates an emotional shift, a new understanding, a paradigm shift, a new way of looking at things there. And then he took a step away from me. So something big shifted there, and he's again looking away. He's kind of like, I think he's saying, I'd like to walk away, but he still, really can't get himself to do it just yet. A little more head tossing and the head down, kind of sniffing and nibbling on the ground. These are all things he's trying to calm himself. He's trying to come down the ladder of emotional arousal and anxiety. And then you see him kind of start to go back to the old pattern, and I am consistent in my response to that. So I got a little more yawning, a little more kind of looking at the world around him, and trying to just make sense of what's happening here. More yawning. Big shifts happening here. Now, the thing with really well-established patterns is that they don't die easily. So you can see here, he comes in, he asks again about coming into my space. I give my same consistent answer, and you see him just taking it in. He's looking around. And so I'll need to repeat all of this many times before we start getting a big behavior change. But watch here. He tosses his head, and in the past, he usually tossed it and then came into me, and he didn't do that this time. And here he tosses his head, he thinks about coming into me, but instead he stomps his foot, which is an indication of, again, a positive transition. So I take that as a great moment to end this particular session. If you enjoyed this first episode about my initial approach to helping Rayleigh begin to stay more present in his own body, in his own mind, and in his own emotions during interactions with a human, I hope you will subscribe to my channel so you can be notified whenever I publish a new episode. This will be an ongoing series over many months and possibly even over many years.